Pelvic pain, a diagnosis that can leave some practitioners questioning what to do and how to best support clients with this issue. So that's why I invited Suzanne Scurlock, a really good friend of mine and a colleague, also founder of Healing from the Core, onto this podcast so that we could delve into the complexities of pelvic pain and its connection to both physical, emotional, and even ancestral trauma. This episode offers transformative insights into the integration of physical, emotional, and energetic healing practices. And it's a must listen for anyone ready to explore the deep connections between body, mind, and spirit in trauma recovery. Hello, friends. This is Lynn Schulte, and you are listening to the Birth Healing Summit podcast. We are here for meaningful conversations that will transform the way you work with pregnant and postpartum clients. Whether it is a new perspective, tool, or technique, you'll be able to implement it into your practice today. I invite you to sit back, listen with an open mind, and grab the golden nugget today's guest has to offer. Now let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode, and I have a treat for us all today. I have Suzanne Scurlock with me today, and Suzanne is a craniosacral therapist instructor. She's been teaching with Upledger for over 35 years. She is also the founder of Healing from the Core and one of my dear, dear sweetheart friends that I just love to connect with because we just resonate and we just have so much in common, I think, with the way we work with our clients and our philosophies. And I've taken several of Suzanne's courses that were just amazing, full of great information. And today I thought Suzanne and I would have a conversation to share with you our insights on pelvic pain. Welcome to the podcast, Suzanne. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah. So Suzanne, when we're going to be talking about pelvic pain today, but really what we're going to be sharing could be used towards any pain in the body. So why is it so important for us to really focus in on pelvic pain? Other than I'm a pelvic health PT, but
So one of the things for me around pelvic pain, and it's why I created Healing the Pelvic Core for women, that course, is because as a culture, people are starting to learn to listen to their pain. The pelvis is like a taboo area. You don't want to talk about it. We have religious or cultural ideas or taboos about what you talk about and what you don't talk about. And pelvic floor pain is still the deep mystery in the culture, unless you are educated as you are or I am. It is still in a sense, it's like the black hole, and we do not know. We're afraid, we're terrified of what that pain might mean, or we're afraid that means something wrong with us. So pelvic floor pain is really, really important to talk to people about. Yeah.
well, it's such a down there attitude towards the pelvis and that whole area. And I really wish it needs to start, I think, in elementary school when they talk about sex ed, and really giving young children the anatomy of this area because we're so afraid that, oh, it's going to make them sexual or whatever the reason is that people don't want us to talk about it. But I think knowledge improve and gives people power. And we don't know what we don't know. And so we need to be educating. I know as pelvic health providers, we're constantly educating our clients about this area and what it entails. And so when pain comes up from this area, it really does create a lot of fear, as most pain does, right, in the body. There's
Yeah.
that fear response. So, what do you like? What is your approach to pelvic pain?
So one of the pieces that we actually did a short freebie podcast on this. uh, Pelvic pain can come from any number of different things that we now know. It could be vulvodynia. It could be that your hormones have changed and you need um, estradiol cream, or you need testosterone cream, or you need something to shift or change the hormonal level in that area. So there's lots of information about it, but the pain that goes along with it often comes from an emotional source that you may or may not understand or even remember. So they can really good docs and MDs and GYNs and pelvic floor specialists can teach you all these other physical things. But
Mhm.
when the pelvic pain is still persistent, you have to look at where's the mind, body, spirit, emotional component coming in here for most women.
Yeah. And how did you come about your understanding of this? What was your journey? I know you're a craniosacral therapist, so you've got that beautiful background.
Well, the only course I still teach in craniosacral therapy right now, other than small mentoring groups, is somato-emotional release. So
Ah,
I'm very, very familiar with how the whole body holds emotion of different kinds. And that was one of Upledger's big ahas in the beginning of his practice, and then what he brought to the world. Um, and what they don't go into in depth in craniosacral land is the pelvis. They do talk about the sacrum, they talk about the pelvic bowl, they talk about the fascia, and they know that there might be emotional things there that you can help someone release, but it's not, they don't focus on that area. And in fact, depending on the practitioner, they may or may not have ethical guidelines for, don't touch that area, don't go to that area. So there's a way in which, because of the nature of our culture, emotional things are not often brought to bear. Because of the work that I do in all parts of the body, when I had my own injury to my own pelvis with my first delivery, I began to work with, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. A
mhm.
lot of women, and some men too, have a just a boatload of what we call in craniosacral land energy cysts. We have locked up places of encapsulated traumatic memory that often live in the pelvis. And it can go all the way back. By the way, it can be lineage trauma. It can be something that happened to your mother or your grandmother because of the way we are, um, because of the way we're made. We, as people, we were a seed in our mother's ovary when she was in her grandmother. So think about that. I mean, there's a way in which lineage trauma actually is not just airy fairy energy, it's actual physical experience. Although when I'm working with a woman who has trauma that she has no memory of and her body doesn't seem to be saying that there was something that happened to her, I go to that lineage piece. And I've seen some fascinating things emerge where the woman had no feeling in her pelvis, and it actually came from a trauma that happened to her grandmother in a war-torn country situation where her own vagina was badly damaged. And this young woman that came into my course, no trauma of her own, in a happy marriage, had a happy childhood with very nice parents. She could not figure out why she had no feeling. And it was actually coming from that lineage memory. Across the course of the time that we had with her in the course, it began to come back. The feeling did, which was quite remarkable. But she had no memory of it, and it began to flood back as as we were working together. See, this is the kind of thing where emotions are, and particularly emotions that are trapped and encapsulated from something that was overwhelming at the time. Yeah.
That was an aha moment for me there, Suzanne. We all, as pelvic health PTs, have encountered women who are like, oh, I'm just numb there. And then when we go and explore it with them, as I teach and you teach, and there's no memory, there's nothing coming up. I
Yep.
love that you said I go down that lineage path and see if what happened or what's being held in these tissues is actually from an ancestor.
Right.
And I've had other experiences come up, but that numbness piece, that was a really big aha here for me right now as I'm listening to you talk, because that makes sense to me. And for those of you listening in and you're not quite understanding this lineage piece, we got to think about quantum physics, right?
Mhm.
We've got to think about how what happened to your grandmother, your ovary, your egg was in your mother's ovary, which was in your grandmother. It's all connected, and that comes through in your, would you call it genes or just cells, or Do we know really?
We don't. What we do know is that the the field of the body holds the memory.
Yeah,
And one of the things I also want to mention is that many of us who work with trauma, if someone says to me, "I'm just numb down there,"
yeah,
and I put their sacrum in my hand and I put another hand on their on the top of the body, and I'm listening, and it's their trauma, it's their own trauma. They may not have a memory yet, but I can feel in my hands in the field that it is their trauma because I can feel the density and the chaotic energy of an energy cyst there in their pelvis. Now, see, that was the fascinating piece about this young woman's pelvis. There was
no,
no
that's,
trauma to feel. And that was the piece and that was this was probably about 20 years ago when I was first teaching the course. And it was such an eye opener. I was blown away. And since then, I have a whole chapter where I have people look at what's your lineage?
yeah.
What did your grandmother say about sex? What did your mother say about sex? Um, how was it treated how were you treated as a woman in your family? All of these items can contribute to pelvic pain down the road.
Well, even their attitude towards men, right?
Hmm.
And their
Yep.
experiences with men, whether it be sexual or just in relationship,
Yep.
that all influences the energy of the field, which I love. And it's so, so true, Suzanne. But I love this understanding of yes, you can totally feel when it is being held in the tissues. The tissues feel different.
Yep.
And those of you listening in, I encourage you to get beyond the tone in the muscle, the tension in the fascia. Like get beyond feeling that and feel for the quality of the space, the energy of what's being held between your hands. Like just get curious with
Hmm.
what you're sensing and feeling. But I love that when you're not feeling anything to then go to the lineage.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
a huge aha moment. So and it makes sense to me, like the analogy that I like to share with people is the pelvic space is meant to be our home in our body. And it holds so much for both men and women. And the analogy I like, so it's our home. That vaginal space could be the front door. That vaginal opening is
Yeah.
like the front door. And when something has happened to us, and it doesn't need to just be sexual, it could be
Right.
emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all of any type of abuse. It's like going to the front door and you open it up and there's a scary monster at the front door. And so what do you do? But you leave the front door open and you run away and you disconnect from your home, from that pelvic space. And sometimes pain in our body, especially pelvic pain, may have a job of trying to reconnect us
Yeah.
to the area. So, Suzanne, how do you help someone who is experiencing pain? And it's actually a disconnect. The pain is, they're not connected to that area. What's your first go-to with someone like that?
Do you know, because I'm a hands-on therapist, because I'm a craniosacral therapist, when someone has pain there, they've come to me, and I'm talking now in my private practice, and people come, they're clothed. Um, I will say, may I place my hand on your wherever they have the pain, and may I place my hand on the other side of your body, wherever that is. And then two pieces happen for me in my own training, and this is what I also teach other people. My presence gets as deeply grounded and as non-invasive as possible. So I bring a heartful, safe space to my hands, and the tissue between my two hands feels that safety. And if it is ready to release at that point or give information about how to release, it's now safe for it to do. And I also, by being grounded, I have a whole channel of energy that's pouring through to that person that allows them to have more energy to release something that's been tightly bound for a long time. And so we have a conversation. I let them know they go at their own pace.
Mhm.
I let them know that I'm curious about it, but I have no agenda for them, that this is what they want. The body has its own way of showing us things, and I explain that I know one of my gifts is knowing how to translate what the body's trying to say so the person can understand it.
Mm.
And so that was that's always been, and that's an easy way to explain it. My hands have been trained to be able to translate for you what your body's trying to say. I had a very simple thing happen years and years ago. I was working on a premier violinist, and she came in. She was sent by someone else because she said to the other therapist, and she said, "Oh, this is something for Suzanne." She said, "I love playing the violin. I go all over the world with the symphony playing the violin. And the last 6 months, something's gone out of it, and I don't know what it is. And I don't understand it because I'm still in my prime." Well, I put my hands there in the area where she would hold her violin,
Mhm.
over this other side actually. And as I sat there with her and did what I just said with you, I held it, I got very safe, and I said, 6 months. What happened 6 months ago? And she said, out of her mouth came, "Well, I had a breast biopsy, but it was negative. There was nothing there." But her body, when she said, "I had a breast biopsy," my hand on the top of her breast just kind of went, "Wait, wait, 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 wait." And I sat there with her for a moment and I said, "Wow, that's wonderful there was nothing there, that it wasn't. Um, let's just take a moment and let your breast know that there was nothing there." And so I held it and I held it and I could feel the tissue just letting go, letting go, letting go. And her whole shoulder softened and all the tissue. So what I did was translate her, and my golly, her whole upper left quadrant was trying to say to her, "Something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. Somebody cut me with a knife. I don't know what's going on." But in fact, it was okay. But the connection hadn't been made. She never came back. She sent me a note. She said, "Good to go." But
Wow.
here was one circumstance that happened. It was a brief thing, and yet it was pivotal to the health of her whole livelihood and what she loved to do. And the
Wow.
body talks with us this way all the time. And I know you have the same skill set in terms of listening to the body with your hands. And this is the biggest gift, because when we know how to translate any pain that's there, that has an emotional component, or the body hasn't caught up with where the person is today, that piece can be done very nicely at a pace the person can handle, and it's beautiful to watch and be with. And often pain has that trigger, like it's caught.
Hmm.
Her
Yeah.
breast tissue was really sure something very badly had gone wrong because it had been cut, and
Yeah.
and they'd gone in, and
So
in fact, yeah.
this is my take on the body and working with it over these years. And that story, I have put my hand on uteruses and I can just feel the uterus just holding so much from the birth,
Mhm.
right? And what happened. And to me, in working with the tissues in this way, and I'd love for you to, I don't know, I want your feedback on the way I'm thinking about this, okay? Because to me, it's almost like those tissues have their own level of consciousness
Absolutely, absolutely,
that
yes.
we need to not only work with it from the mind and the nervous system perspective. Like I think where like that tissue releasing and letting go, is that the tissue specifically? Is it the nervous system? I almost feel like there's different levels of consciousness within our body, and that our mind has one level of awareness and understanding, and our tissues have another, and maybe even our nervous system has a third.
Mhm.
What's
You
your
know,
take on all that?
I think the nervous system and the well, now this is fascinating. I'd never really thought about separating the nervous system out from the body's wisdom because the nervous system is so much a part of the body's
Yeah,
wisdom. But you could, and as I talk about the different wisdom areas in the body. So I love and I adhere to the idea that, and it's been my experience, that the body has its own wisdom.
yeah,
And we've gotten so disconnected. You just spoke about being disconnected. We've gotten so disconnected
yeah.
from that wisdom that it can be shouting.
Mhm.
And nope,
Nobody's listening. Right.
nobody's listening. And it what can often get worse and worse when no one's listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from my experience, and I'm going to play with this more and explore this more. But like this person you were talking about, in her mind, she knew that it was benign.
Right.
And and yet and I would love to maybe explore more with her in like the nervous system. If we were to maybe focus on helping her nervous system to calm down, would that have changed the breast tissue?
I got,
Or,
I got to be really honest. I don't know. All I know is that my own way of doing it is to go straight to the core of what's being held,
yeah,
and I just hold it and love it up. Oftentimes, I'll say to therapists, "You have to kind of think about. You remember E.T. and he had this finger and he had this pure light that came out of it, and it was just pure, unconditional love." So
yes,
and that's often what I invoke. I say, we're just going to put a little ET finger right here and offer this space whatever it needs. And we don't know. And what happens is the nervous system relaxes, the
mhm,
tissues relax, the muscles relax,
yeah,
the cardiovascular system, and you can almost feel the heart uncoiling and
yeah,
it's done. And
yeah.
we're good. We're good to go. I don't even know whether I would want to separate out the nervous system from the rest of the tissue. Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm asking this question is because I know some physical therapists, occupational therapists, they address the nervous system in the body. They address that heightened awareness, that heightened sensitivity of the nervous system.
Like a fight or flight.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
but
okay.
they may do some stretching of the vagus nerve and, do some other kind of nervous system things.
Mhm.
But and that's all great.
Mhm.
And I think the tissues still, wherever it's being held in the body, the tissues still need that love.
Thank you. And on top of that, see, Upletter's original aha moment that really broke him onto the international scene is that he came up with this idea that when trauma happens to the body, or as we know, lineage trauma, but when trauma happens to your physical body, generally speaking, you can let it go. You've watched kids. They fall down, they get up, they cry for a moment, then boop, it's gone. It dissipates.
Yes.
But there's often trauma that's overwhelming to the person.
Mhm,
And we can speak of many different kinds of trauma. It could be the velocity of it. Like I was
mhm.
telling you earlier about the car accident I was in at 40 miles an hour, and the whole left side of my body was slammed into the car door. The velocity of that meant that my body had a hard time letting it go. But often the pivotal piece is that the emotional matrix at the time of the trauma, that negative emotional matrix, it can be anger, it can be fear, it can be terror, it can be grief, it can be resentment, it can be any number of different things, but it will lock that into the body. Overwhelming, negative,
Mhm.
and it goes in and it literally it's like an energy cyst. The walls build around that disorganized, chaotic energy, and the body has to do that so it can keep functioning.
Yeah. Thank
Because
God
that
does it. Right?
exactly, and we say that. We often say when we're helping something release, "Thank you for being here all these years. Now you get to go take a vacation," right? And we let it go. So that's where, I think that aha that he gave us,
Mhm.
that energy cyst, you can relax everything you want to, but that energy cyst is still going to be there.
Yes.
And
And
that tissue was pretty sure she was dying when somebody started cutting that close to her heart, right? And it
uh, Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Suzanne, that's one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle that I encounter all the time, especially with trauma,
Yeah.
is there was a fear of death.
Hmm. Hmm.
And nobody is addressing that fear of death.
Hmm. Yep.
And that when we can just say either I died or I think I was going to die, just acknowledging that
Mhm.
is so important. And you have your own way of shifting limiting beliefs, and I teach a three-step process for shifting limiting beliefs. And I feel that trauma, usually there's some sort of limiting belief that got implanted during that time, especially if it was a near death, like, or I thought I was going to die. And that gets locked in that energy cyst, like you mentioned there. And until that is addressed, it doesn't let go.
Right. Right.
And so
Oh,
I think
totally
there's,
agree.
yeah, I just don't think that a lot of cognitive behavioral therapists, counselors, psychotherapists really go into the negative. I hear my clients say all the time, oh, my counselor was just telling me that I'm okay, that I should just focus on that I was okay, that I'm okay, I survived it. I go, but you can't go to the survival until you address that I almost died or I died in
Right.
you.
Right. Right. No, I'm completely with you. And it has to be someone. But see, they're also addressing, see, it's the body. It's that energy cyst that's in the body. I say that every limiting belief that someone's carrying from a past experience has an anchor right down in the body somewhere. And
Mm.
until you have to address this piece, but you also have to address this piece.
Ah,
And
yeah.
there are some great. I like your three-step method. I like how you work with it. There are a number of other good methods out there.
Yeah.
It's not really that's not really my specialty. I've kind of put some things together, but I love watching how the limiting beliefs shift
Yes.
when the energy cyst opens up. Yeah.
And that is the shift in the energy that we're looking for in my process of releasing the energy, the limiting belief. It's like you've got to feel the shift in the body,
Yep.
in the energy of the words and in what you're feeling in the tissues. It's so connected. And I want to also tap in on, limiting beliefs is one aspect, but it's the overwhelm of the emotion in that time that the event happened that is so important for us to address with our clients because emotions are one of the biggest things that I think our world today tries to avoid.
Right. Or they abuse it. Sometimes people in power, not to name names, will do things to manipulate people's emotional states of fear and all of that. So it yes, but you're right. It is badly misunderstood, and the emotional component to releasing any kind of trauma is often overlooked, and the physical part that
Mhm.
connects to that emotion is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A client of mine taught me a beautiful lesson because she came in and her birth was okay, but it was the aftermath of the birth. It was trauma, 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 trauma. And I remember just hearing her story, and my therapist mind was going, "Oh my gosh, that is so much. I'm not sure how I'm going like, how am I supposed to help this person with all this trauma?" And so I listened to her body. And I was shocked to find nothing in her tissues.
Mm.
Like the only thing that showed up was
Mm.
something from when she was a teenager.
Wow.
And I was like, what did you do?
Mhm.
And she said that I replayed or I reprocessed my birth 3 times with my doula and my partner. And I really focused in on the emotion that I was feeling in that moment.
There you go.
Right? So that like the emotions are so key.
Yep.
And as therapists, it's so important for us we have to be okay allowing that emotion to come up,
Yeah.
to release.
Yeah.
What do you have to say for those of us working with others about our own emotional state, our own ability to be with emotion.
Well, I think we have to do our own work first so
Amen,
that
sister.
because if somebody else's emotion terrifies me, then I'm going to be really hard pressed to stay present and grounded and loving and compassionate and boundaried in that therapeutic setting.
Yeah.
I have to have done my own work. The second piece and this has really only come to me in the last 10 years. I've been doing this for what, 40 years now. So what's fascinating to me though, is the more I work with my presence, as people have emotions come up, it's as though the field that I work to create for people is very wide and grounded, so that whatever emotion comes out doesn't have to be something that scares them or me. It
Mm,
is, or like rather than coming out like a aerosol can, it
yeah.
just kind of goes, "Whew," and dissipates, which it sounds like your client did with her doula and her partner. They
Right.
went through and the two of them held a space that was big enough for her that it could just bubble up and out. And it didn't have to be big, dramatic, re-traumatizing. It
Um,
just needed to be accessed,
yeah.
held, witnessed. Yeah.
Acknowledged and witnessed,
Yeah.
right? That's the biggest thing. Suzanne, what really stood out to me, what you just said there, was our ability as the therapist to create a field of
Mhm.
safety and security in the room that just allows those, and I'm going to put this in quotes, scary emotions to be able to come up in a soft and healing way without it having to be ugly and hard.
Right. And re-traumatizing.
And
And
re-traumatizing, yes.
yeah.
But that's huge, everybody listening in. I hope you caught that.
Yeah.
That it's your ability to create a field of safety and of love, really, because
Grounding.
ground,
Absolutely
yeah,
grounded. Yeah.
because that will allow the emotion, the space to come up in a gentle way for your
Mhm.
client.
Mhm. It's not that I don't see tears in my practice. I do.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's not that um, there are lots of different things that people can emote about in my presence, but it is no longer big and dramatic, and nor does it have to be hard or re-traumatizing. It
yeah,
is just the field just lets go.
yeah.
And
And
when I'm holding a space that is that wide, it's like putting, I don't know, a cup of salt in a big lake.
yeah.
It just dissipates. So,
One of the things, this has been my personal experience, and I just checked in with my birth healing intensive group to see if others were having the same experience, but it has come up multiple times with several different clients in my clinic, is this idea that if I feel this emotion fully, I
mhm,
will die.
yeah. Mm,
And if someone has that limiting belief, it makes perfect sense why they avoid their emotions at all cost.
well, and when they had the event that caused that wave of emotion, it was so overwhelming that they were terrified. And it's when it's overwhelming, they definitely need deep connection with a source that can offer them that capacity to stay with it, breathe, and let it be witnessed and let it dissipate. And so it makes perfect sense. And as I said, we often thank whatever part of the body walled itself off and said, no, 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 you're not going to feel that because that almost killed us before, right?
Right.
Whether or not it almost killed them, they were pretty sure
But
that
it
it,
doesn't matter. It's their perception of it, right?
right. That's
It's
right.
everybody's perception
Yeah.
of the event, and everybody has a different perception of the event based on our history, right?
And and if they thought that they were going to die, that walling off happens so rapidly and so completely. And you'll see this when you see a sad circumstance where you see a child who's bubbly and joyful, and suddenly you look at pictures of them and they've gone flat. and everything has gone inside, there is that energy cyst that has been built around something, and we don't know what. But when their affect changes that dramatically, look for it, because that is an issue. The same for women, the same for, well, same for anyone with
Mhm.
trauma. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So Suzanne, you have some amazing trainings. Thank you for the work that you're putting out into the world and what you're doing. It is so needed. And
Mm.
I would love for our audience, whether you're a practitioner or, just listening in, you're a mom. I would love people to know more about what you're putting out into the world and how you're supporting women in their own healing. Would you share, please?
Sure, sure. So, of course, the down and dirty version is I had a really, really hard delivery, my very first delivery, a lot of trauma to my pelvis. And it was right there that I started to look at the fact that there wasn't a whole lot available for women. And I didn't know a whole lot, even though I was a body worker, even though I was an instructor of craniosacral therapy. So I began to put together a workshop where I could help women to regain their power. So I taught them, first thing I teach them the whole first day of that class, my Healing the Pelvic Core, is how do you get grounded? How do you hold space for someone else? And as women, this is the most valuable thing we can give to the world right now, is our power in a grounded, integrated way. Then we go on and I teach them about their anatomy. And I have two pelvic floor PTs that have taught with me across the years, and they go right into the whole anatomy and physiology of how we work, what can go wrong, and what you can do about it. Then we do movement. I teach women how to start to move in ways that are bring more feeling and movement if they've gotten disconnected. We talk about their lineage. How did your mother talk about her sexuality? How about your grandmother? How in your family of origin was your sensuality and sexuality treated and spoken about or not spoken about? So we look at what's the lineage? What are the limiting beliefs, as you say? What is it that you think that that you've been walking around with that absolutely is something that's limiting you?
Mhm.
And then we work on what would be the antidote to that. Like what could you say to yourself that would be different? Then we go on into work where we put hands on clothing, on clothing on, hands on each other in two different rounds of sacred ceremony, where women get to be held in non-sexual ways in a way that's healing for the body and particularly for the pelvis, because the pelvis is an area that rarely gets held in non-sexual ways. And we then go on in the aftermath of those ceremonies, we do a whole piece on sensuality and sexuality throughout your life, the different life cycles, teenage years, pre-baby, post-baby, menopause, after 70, after 80, who's still enjoying themselves and what are they doing in order to do that, to keep we do wonderful pieces with breath and movement and sound throughout and connecting with nature. So there's lots of wonderful stuff that we have done across the years to make this workshop very rich for both the lay public or therapists. We have many, many therapists that come into the class as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's been, quite honestly, that's the only class that I personally still teach in person. Almost everything else I do is online, except for the craniosacral classes that the Upledger Institute sets up.
Yeah.
Um, but this is for
And
me, my mission in the world is to get women empowered, healed, get their voices, get their juiciness back, get
yeah.
their, yeah, that's important.
Oh,
Yeah.
it so is. And that's why I think it's so important for everybody listening into this, whether you're going to go yourself or you're working with clients that you feel could really benefit from this. There is nothing like being in a circle of women holding space for each other to allow that healing to happen. The depth and the breadth of that healing is incredible. And so that is your healing from the core. It's a 5 day, sorry,
Healing the pelvic core.
pelvic floor. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the healing the pelvic floor is your is it still 5 days?
Yes. And we actually changed it. We realized 3 years ago that that we were healing a lot more than just the pelvic floor, the hammock. So we shifted that, which is confusing, to healing the pelvic core. So the whole
Okay.
pelvic. core area. Yeah. Yeah.
That
It's
that makes
five days.
perfect
It's
sense.
5 days. And we do it in Asheville, North Carolina. It's coming up in the fall. And we also do it in here in Claymont in West Virginia, a beautiful old mansion. Yeah. And I did for a while teach it at Esalen, like 25 years. That's actually where I started it. Um, and have not been teaching it there in the last year or two. Been sticking to the East Coast.
Yeah,
So
well, Heather Hannon is
yes.
has helped you to teach it in Esalen. And
Oh,
that's
she's been
where that's how I found you, Suzanne. So thank you, Heather. I know you're listening, so thank you, Heather.
yeah.
And so I just love she was so on fire about what you guys were doing there, and then once I got to know you, I'm like, oh, I love this work. I love the way you teach, and I just think it's so important for every practitioner working in this space to know how to ground and fill yourself to create the presence to allow that healing to happen. And it's so important that you do your own work. And what I also love about what I've heard about your program is the person whose turn it is to have people put their hands on them, they get to determine where their hands go.
Right.
I
Right.
love that. Like how empowering, like listening in. As therapists, we always, put the hands where we think it should go. And sometimes it's so nice when our clients can go, I really need to be held here today, and to be able to offer that to
And
them.
that one of the reasons why we do 2 rounds of this healing ceremony in the course is because many people, they are from the lay public, they're not therapists.
Mhm.
Their first round is like, okay, I want a hand here and a hand here, right? And then they see that nobody dies or turns into whatever. And so the second round, they go, okay, now I want a hand right on my pelvic floor and one right, and there's no holding back. And
Yeah.
they realize the power of what happened, and it blows me away. The power of what occurs when women show up for each other
Yeah.
and offer touch in a neutral, loving way.
Oh,
Touch that is done at the behest of the woman being touched,
yeah.
right? They get to say, as you said, they get to say where the hand goes, and if they want something to change, they change it. But it's the person on the table that guides that entire experience. And I think
Yes.
that's what makes it work. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why you don't have to be a therapist to come and do this with each other and just holding that presence. And oh, it's just so beautiful. And we need this connection, this being in person with each other, supporting each other more today than ever before.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we've had people in this course from, I think my youngest person was 18,
Mhm.
um,
Oh,
all the way up to a woman who was 79, maybe she was 80 years old, who had had 6 kids. And the
oh,
stories are just so rich. Oh, Lynn, it's
oh,
wonderful. By the end of the 5 days, everyone feels like they've just made new best friends. And it's remarkable. We've had women that came in and said, I didn't like women. When I started this course, I'd always had men friends. And now, as far as I'm concerned, I got some new best friends. And it really is lovely to watch the bonding that occurs with that. Yeah.
wow. Oh my gosh, I get the chills there, Suzanne. That just sounds so beautiful. So thank you for the work that you do. And please, everybody listening in, please share this information far and wide.
Mm.
Let's share this podcast with others, share Suzanne's website with others. We'll have it in the show notes. Please check out her 5-day Healing the Pelvic Core workshop so that you can go get the healing and bring your besties with you. It will be an amazing experience. I know it. So,
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn. That means a lot coming from you, my dear.
oh, thank
Yeah.
you, Suzanne.
Deeply for you. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm like, as we were recording this, I'm like, maybe we need to do a part two. I just know you and I, we just resonate so beautifully with each other and the work that we're doing and sharing in the world. And it's just so beautiful to support a fellow colleague that is doing amazing work in the world. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And we will definitely have you back again because I know there's so much more that we can talk about and have fun doing it. So I hope you guys all got those golden nuggets for you. I know I got a couple of them. Suzanne, you're so full of wonderful wisdom. Thank you for sharing with us all today. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and we will see you all on the next episode. Here is to smoother births, faster recoveries, and women standing in their power. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Today's podcast was brought to you by the Institute for Birth Healing. To discover more, visit instituteforbirthhealing.com. To claim $50 off of any online course, use coupon code PODCAST50 at checkout. Till next time, I'm Lynn Schulte, founder of the Institute for Birth Healing.